Joining me today on NYSE Floor Talk is Suresh Vasudevan. He is the CEO at Sysdig. Suresh, it's wonderful to have you here. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So now let's talk about the company. Tell me about Sysdig and what's the problem you're solving in today's enterprise security environment?
Yeah, so Sysdig as a company, we are focused on one singular mission, which is how do we secure and accelerate innovation in the cloud? So when you look at almost any company today, increasingly a lot of their innovation is powered by building applications in the cloud, which of course increases the speed at which you can deliver software, deliver innovation. But what that also means is that the attack surface for cyber criminals is also much larger. The cloud presents a much larger attack surface area, and you're seeing that there are now almost daily reports of breaches in the cloud that companies are having to disclose. And perhaps even more than the fact that these cyber breaches in the cloud are happening at a greater frequency is the speed at which attacks in the cloud progress. So what you're often seeing is that typically once cyber attackers find their way into your cloud estate, it only takes about 10 minutes to launch an exploit. 10 minutes in which it could be your data that's stolen, it could be that your intellectual property is stolen, it could be that your operations are disrupted, or it could be that you're being held to ransom, right? So 10 minutes is how long it takes once someone makes their way into your cloud estate to then launch an attack. So with that as backdrop, really what Sysdig focuses on, our core technology is aimed at solving two problems. The first is how do we help companies find and prioritize what kind of security weaknesses are most likely to be exploited by cyber criminals to breach your cloud in the first place. Second, if and when there is a cyber attack in the cloud, knowing that you only have about 10 minutes to detect and respond, how do you really detect and respond to an attack and stop the exploit in the first place? So that's really sort of what we do as a company.
Now, you mentioned it takes 10 minutes in terms of how quickly you need to detect, triage, and respond to attacks in the cloud. So tell me about the importance of delivering runtime insights.
Yeah, so Judy, when we say 10 minutes is how long it takes for someone to launch an exploit, we've studied sort of cloud breaches, hundreds and thousands of cloud breaches. Our threat research team has put out reports on patterns that we've observed. And sort of typically what we find is that in order to understand sort of how these breaches progress, there are often three roads that cybercriminals take to get into your cloud estate. So the first is that you've misconfigured how your cloud is deployed. The second is that they're using social engineering to gain access to credentials, and then those credentials are then used to exploit sort of access and steal stuff in the cloud. Lastly, the software that developers are building often has vulnerabilities, and so using those software vulnerabilities, people then make their way into the cloud. And from the point that they're in the cloud, typically, unlike in traditional environments, on-premise application environments, where it might take days before the access is then manifested in the form of an exploit, in the cloud, once you find an entryway, it only takes about 10 minutes. So how do you really stop this? And that's really where Runtime Insights, which is the core Sysdig technology, plays a huge role in three different aspects. First, it allows us to know what are the risks that have the greatest likelihood of leading to an exploit so that developers and security teams that are really inundated with false positives know where they should spend their time. And I'll give you a couple of examples in a moment. The second benefit of Runtime Insights is in preventing stuff from happening. So how do I, knowing what's happening in my runtime environment on a live basis, prevent things from going wrong? And lastly, the deep understanding of what's happening in my cloud in my cloud runtime environment allows me to know how to stop an attack when it's in motion, if you will. So that's really the three benefits. It's prioritizing risk, it's preventing an attack, and then when an attack is underway, it's detecting and responding to an attack.
Now, security is no longer just the CISO's job. Security is a top discussion at the boardroom level. Two of the biggest discussions that are happening right now are how to protect the cloud and how AI can help protect us. Tell me, what are you hearing from your customers?
Yeah, great comment. So I'll give you 2 or 3 big topics that seem to be on the minds of our customers. First, let me acknowledge by saying, ever since the new SEC cyber regulation has come out, requiring companies to file an 8K disclosure when they have a material breach, it now has become necessary for the audit committee of the board to engage in understanding the impact of breaches, and so it's definitely a board level topic. You talked about AI. One of the greatest hopes in cybersecurity, let me start. The biggest problem that we see is that there aren't enough skilled professionals to be able to thwart every possible attack. Lack of skills in security, lack of deep knowledge about what's happening in the cloud is an enormous problem given sort of how multidimensional attacks can be. And so this is really where the promise of AI is enormous. As a company, Sysdig gathers an enormous amount of data that tells us where your risks are, that tells us how to respond to an attack, that tells us how to stop an attack from happening in the first place. But we also still rely on the expertise of security professionals within each company to know how to use Sysdig to prevent a security attack. This is where we are investing quite heavily in AI because we fundamentally believe that AI co-pilots can really transform the productivity of our customers, right? A single person can accomplish 5 times as much when armed with AI. So that's certainly a big topic. Every single customer wants to know what is our roadmap for how we'll use AI to help them sort of become better at stopping attacks. A second big conversation that's starting to happen now is when you look at a lot of these security operations teams in our customers, they were built for more traditional applications that used to run within a company's own data centers. As they've moved to the cloud, there isn't enough of an understanding of the tools necessary to know sort of what kind of risks could lead to a cloud breach. How do I recognize when there's a breach in motion? What data do I need, and do I have the tools to gather that data? So a second big discussion topic is how do I have detection and response that used to be focused on network inside my firewall, or that used to be focused on endpoints? How do I translate that into cloud detection and response technologies? So cloud detection and response technologies for the Security Operations Center is a big topic of discussions within our customer base as well. Lastly, I would say partly driven by the economic environment we've been living in, but partly also because customers want a holistic view of risk. There's a big drive towards consolidating point solutions into more platform solutions that give them a broad visibility into their cloud, all the risks in the cloud, the breaches that are happening within the cloud. So there's a drive towards consolidation of security tooling meant for the cloud, which is creating new companies, if you will, that are really specialized in this area.
All right, and finally, tell me, what's next for Sysdig? What can we expect to hear from Sysdig in 2024?
Yeah, so there's 2 or 3 areas I'll call out, right? First one, I would say, Judy, is because of the preponderance of attacks, the cloud security market is growing at a frenetic pace. We're seeing companies recognize the need to invest, and there are estimates by analysts that would say the cloud security market is $4 billion or so today and likely to double in just the next 3 years. And certainly when we see how our customers think about what they need to do to protect the cloud, we think that growth rate, if anything, will be exceeded. So the first aspect really for Sysdig is investing to drive growth. We've already seen around 50% growth over the last year, even in the economic environment that we've been living in, and we expect to accelerate that growth. And so that's sort of the first thing I would say is a lot of focus on driving growth, driving the broader adoption of our technology. The second thing I would also call out is really innovation. I already touched a little bit on AI, so investing in AI, investing in broadening we have an open source product that's been the foundation of why we are the leader in cloud detection and response. So investing further in making sure that our customers are able to detect and respond to attacks in the cloud and prevent attacks in the cloud. So a lot of innovation. We have multiple new product announcements over the course of the next few quarters that we're looking forward to. Last thing I would say is the runtime insights, which is core to what we do, really stands for a deep understanding of what's happening in your production cloud environments and using that to make informed decisions about risk, about cloud breaches. Over the last 2 years, we've started feeding these same runtime insights, not just into our products, but into our partner products, because even they, as they surface security findings, want to leverage knowledge about what's happening in runtime to prioritize risks. So building out an ecosystem of partnerships with other security companies is another big area of investment for us, and that's something else you'll see us talk about a lot.
All right. Well, Suresh, it's wonderful to talk with you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here.
Thanks for joining me on Floor Talk.
Thank you again, Judy.